I would say give it a try. You got nothing to lose. It's free. There's some perks, They've got some great resources.
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
I realized that my life was going to change dramatically in ways that I did not know or understand or even comprehend. I was going to have to really go to the well and become accountable and adjust to a lot of things differently.
Que queríamos era que naciera, ya quiero tener, entonces ahorita lo que tenemos es aprovecharla, quererla y cuidarla lo más que se pueda.
Creo que a todos nos preocupa la primera vez que nos dicen que vamos a ser padres.
When we started the program, my daughter was about 3 months, and my daughter's 22 months now. Something I love about my child, that she's healthy, she's happy, she knows that she's cared for and loved. Those are some of the things that I wanted to make sure that she had, and she has them.
I'm happy today with my daughter. She's the greatest thing in my life, and I'm glad to wake up and see her, and everything I do it for her.
Sí, bueno, yo también vengo de una familia separada. Creo que por eso también me motiva a estar más presente con él, de quizás también estar de la forma quizás que yo no la tuve para Máximo. Y también comprender que el padre no solo es el que pone los límites y las reglas, sino que también está ahí para hablar, acompañar, regalonear, jugar, cosas lindas también, no solo ser el guía para el niño, sino que también un compañero de vida.
I was more of a elated and thankful because for 3 months I was in baby land, and when you're in baby world, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants and hoping that you're just supportive in the ways that you can be supportive.
Pero pues aquí pues ya los enseñan un poquito más cosas que uno no sabía, como cómo cuidarla, cómo desarrollarla, cómo educarla, y pues es algo bien porque pues cosas que yo no sabía, pues ya usted nos las dijo y todo como consejos, y pues muchas cosas que se aprendieron.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia, sino más bien un programa de estado programado para la ayuda solamente. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros, porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades. Siempre nos hemos podido apoyar en Gaby a través de su programa. Encuentro que ha sido fundamental el apoyo.
My experience has been nothing but positive. Annette has been wonderful. She's on time. She lets me know if there's going to be any changes in the schedule.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I still feel the challenge of being a parent now in today's world is immense. I think that you need support.
Es un gran apoyo para nuevos padres, y más aún si están en nuestra situación, que somos extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente, y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Don't be afraid to take that step. Like, don't be afraid to get help, because you might think that you know what you're doing, but it's always okay to have extra support, and don't do it alone.
Give it a try. You got nothing to lose. It's free. I'm grateful that I took advantage because it's something that has put me in touch with my child, or closer to my child and her development.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Part of being prepared is knowing your hazards and taking proper precautions. Visit mendoready.org. On the Know Your Hazards page, you can find hazards for where you work, where you live, and where your kids go to school. On the Plan and Prepare page, you'll find a plan template. It's important to know what you're going to do, what you're going to take with you, how you're going to communicate, where you're going to go, and how to get there.
One great way to prepare is to pack a go bag. Each member of your family should have their own go bag. Visit our website, mendoready.org, to get a list of items that should be in your go bag.
Gathering and organizing important documents before an emergency is an important part of preparedness. So visit mendoready.org today, where you can find a list of important documents that you should have ready near your go bag in case you have to evacuate.
Not every emergency requires people to evacuate. An emergency kit will have supplies for you to remain self-sufficient for 72 hours. Find a list of supplies for disaster kits on our website, mendoready.org.
A prepared community is a resilient community that will recover faster from disasters. So take some time today, visit our website, get yourself prepared so you can be Mendo ready.
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
I think that as a parent now, I'm grateful for support more than I was before.
I filled out that form not knowing what I was doing. I am very, very grateful that I did it because it's really helping me a lot.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo.
Director Green.
Present.
Director Gasca.
Here.
Director Navarez is not present. Director Bailey. Director McNerlin is not present, and Chair McGordy.
Present. All right, so next item is the approval of the agenda.
Second.
Okay, there's the agenda's been
Green and Gasca.
Thank you.
okay. Let's take a roll call vote, please.
Director Green.
Aye.
Director Gasca.
Aye.
Director Bailey.
Aye.
And Chair McGordy.
Yes. Moving on would be public comment on items not on the agenda. This time is reserved for public to address the board about matters not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of the board. Persons wishing to speak on specific agenda items should do so at this time. If there's a specific item, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. So if you have a specific item, then you'll have a chance for public comment at the specific item. But this is for non-agenda items. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to comment? Is there anybody online?
No hands present online.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on to, sorry, momentarily lost. Discussion and possible action items. And we need to elect a new board secretary.
So with the departure of Al White, he was functioning in the role of board secretary. We need to elect a new one. And just to give you a sense of what the responsibility is, it is largely signing resolutions. And so that can be, that assignment can be given to a board of directors. It can also be given to me as your GM. So largely what it is just us getting a resolution signed. It's most of the time of why we need a secretary. So you could, I know there was perhaps discussion of assigning it to a board member, perhaps one that's not in attendance today. You could assign that role to me temporarily and then assess other individuals' interest or aptitude to doing that.
I would like to nominate Teresa McNerlin.
Question?
Yes, okay. Hold on a sec here. So, Director Crane?
Question is, why isn't it the chair? It could be the chair.
It sort of seems that that's a logical solution.
Generally, it's someone other than the chair because the chair signs all the documents themselves, and then a secretary is confirming as a second witness to that chair signature, basically.
Okay, just not used to it.
Okay.
Second your motion.
Okay, so we have a first and a second to have Director McNerlin be our secretary. Any further discussion? It's perfect. She's not here, so she can't object.
I mean, she can always resign immediately at our next meeting, but...
Sure. We can make it conditional on her to change her motion.
Yeah, I'll change my motion. I'll nominate Teresa McNerlin to serve as our secretary, dependent on her acceptance.
Through the chair, I do want to just point out that there are several resolutions ahead of your board at today's board meeting in which we would be seeking a secretary to be a witness to sign those, and without Director McNerlin present, I would be looking to our legal counsel who are online as to how we would best approach that.
So real quick, do we know how long she's out of pocket, unavailable? Indigo?
She's on vacation, so
yeah.
Likely just this. I mean, I'm assuming that she'll be able to make the next meeting as long as it works with her schedule.
Yeah.
Our Deputy Counsel, Lauren Bernadette, just unmuted and turned her camera on, so I would defer to her.
Willing to volunteer.
Was the question that if she's not in attendance, how will you guys sign things without her?
Yes.
Will she be back before? It is tricky because if you were okay with the resolution not being signed until she's back, which I don't know when that is, if it's a month, that might be more problematic. If it's next week, that might be okay with you guys.
But there's no concerns with her not being present in the meeting, but signing the resolution as secretary.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, thank you for that.
I see we have a hand raised from Beth Solomon. Beth?
Yes, thank you, Chair McGordy. Ms. McNerlin is on an airplane on her way home now, which is why she was unable to even view the meeting at all. She'll be home soon.
Okay, so is that going to be acceptable for getting our resolutions signed?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the table. Let's go ahead and take a roll call vote.
We have a second on that motion?
Yes, we did. Director Crane.
Okay, roll call vote. Director Crane?
Aye.
Director Gasca?
Aye.
Director Bailey?
Aye.
And Chair McCordy?
Aye. Motion carries. All right, so next will be our grant writing budget reallocation. GSA staff.
Thank you, Chairman McCordy. So just a little bit of background. West Yost has been hired to basically be your contract administrator and manager of the GSA. We have been assigned a variety of line items in the budget. We manage our budget within a contract that we have with the GSA. And in speaking with the Budget Ad Hoc Committee, I daylighted the fact that, like all budgets, sometimes you can hit the mark and sometimes you're under budget, sometimes you're over budget. They're estimates. And in many budget categories for the current fiscal year, we're over budget currently. Those include meeting management. We've had more meetings than were originally forecasted, and I think our support for the rate and fee study probably went beyond what we had originally estimated. That's the downside. The upside is we have a grant writing budget that it's an item that has very little money has been expended against it. It's $24,000 and a little over $3,000 has been spent against it. Before I went to the effort of developing a plan on how we might reallocate that, I wanted to just do a check-in with the board at the suggestion of Glenn, just to see that everybody would be okay with that. The plan would be I would bring back to the board a reallocation plan. That plan would not result in an increase in the current year's budget, still be the same. We're just moving money around to address shortages in other categories. So I pause there and see if there's any questions or comments.
Board members, questions or comments? Button.
Move the recommended action of reassigning the dollars to as suggested.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion on the item?
I just wanted to get clarification on it. So we are approving the reallocation then?
Yes.
Board? Okay, good. Thank you.
Is there any public comment on the agenda item? If not, roll call vote, please.
Director Crane?
Aye.
Director Gasca?
Aye.
Director Bailey?
Aye.
And Chair McCordy?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. We'll now move on to item C, which is the fiscal year 24-25 budget.
Okay, thank you. Indigo, can you pull that up on the screen, please? So staff has been working with a committee of the board, an ad hoc committee of the board and of the TAC to develop a expense budget for the next fiscal year. Indigo's pulled it up on the screen. If you can scroll up and see if you can get expenses. So yeah, we're looking at just expenses there. So the nature of this budget is it's basically task described, and each of those tasks are largely assigned to consultants. For example, board and TAC meetings is a West Yost role that we serve. We organize for the board meetings. We prepare the board packets. We assist you in implementing decisions that the board makes, and so on and so forth. And so these expenses have been reviewed by the Budget Ad Hoc Committee. We've gone through several iterations and have really pared it down to what I would characterize as a very lean budget. particularly as it relates to our oversight of the GSA. But this is, as I understand it, a budget that reflects the will of the ad hoc committee. And in round numbers, it totals to just a little bit under $500,000. The revenue for this budget has been approved at $600,000. That'll be the basis of implementing the fee. So if form holds and everything works out perfectly in terms of our estimating, we would finish the year with about $100,000 dropping to the bottom line in the form of cash for reserves to be used in the following year. So I guess with that, I would open it up to questions to see if you have anything you'd like to discuss within the budget proper.
Questions from board members? I have a question is on the county administration part. So are there, and there's also county fee costs. So will you go over those for us to be sure that we understand them?
Yeah, county admin is what we pay for rent of this building and support in IT over here. And I think that cost is based on
the fee costs
4
will be
meetings a
the
year.
fee for managing the property tax bills and administering the proposed groundwater sustainability fee, which is the subsequent item on the agenda today.
Okay, so now I'm looking at it from the point of view of a supervisor, and I'm going, wow, that's a bargain. So, you know, I hope that since we do fee recovery, that's one of the things that I hope that it holds true.
Right.
To comment on that, generally the fees for administration is set at a certain percentage of what the GSA's, what we're asking the county to put on the property tax bill. And so the current proposal is 2%, but one of the items before your board on today's agenda would be for the GSA staff to negotiate a contract with the county auditor, controller to actually do that work.
Okay.
So then what we have in the budget, Indigo, is really just an estimate, and it's subject to that negotiation, which is yet to take place.
Board members, any other questions?
Yeah, I'm new to the board. I have I'm curious, is there a reserve policy? I mean, I see that you're looking to double the reserves in this first year of implementing the rate and fee structure, which I know is going to come as a big shock to people who get these bills. And so I'm just curious of, you know, running this large of a surplus in the first year, if there was a reason or a policy behind that.
Yeah, I think the discussion with the ad hoc committee was we wanted to try to achieve a reserve balance in 5 years of $180,000. This gets you on your way to doing that. One of the challenges with this, with the way income is going to come in on this budget, is we have 2 months. We have 2 months where we actually go negative in cash flow, and so for the year we're solid, but we have 2 months where we have an inability to basically pay bills. And so what we have, the workaround on that has been to bill County of Mendocino and City of Ukiah in advance of what they would ordinarily pay. So we're not collecting any more money. But if we were to go with a even more leaner budget, we'd have to tap that workaround a little bit deeper, probably 3 or 4 months. But largely what's driving the reserves, as you see it in this budget, is a direction given by the ad hoc committee to achieve $180,000 in year 5.
And to further clarify Harry's comment on that, the other element to the reserve and to us showing kind of a fund balance add on this fiscal year is we have projected higher expenses. The fee study and this budget is based off of a 5-year average budget, and so the revenue gained this year is based off of an average of 5-year costs, and those costs are projected to be higher in subsequent fiscal years, largely due to the GSP implementation update that is required to be submitted to the state by January 1st, 2027. And so those costs would largely be hitting us in fiscal year 25-26.
Yeah, I mean, one of the headwinds in this budget is the public reaction to the new assessments. We're going to get into our fee proposal for the next year, but we've assumed 10 petitions. Hopefully there's less than that. There may be more. That's probably, as I see it, the biggest headwind in the budget is how much the GSA staff has to get engaged in resolving disputes and petitions on the process. And other community outreach that we may have to do because of that. We're very lean in terms of reacting to phone calls and emails from inquiries about, does my parcel, for example, how's it going to be assessed? It's still an unknown, and so again, that's what I see as the biggest headwind. If to the extent that it produces, immaterial amounts of petitions, we can reassess the fees going into the next fiscal year to tune up how much we are capturing in reserve and get that a little bit more aligned with whatever the board believes is the prudent amount to keep in reserves. But long-winded answer, it's kind of it's more art than science in terms of defining the reserve amount. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to answer John's question a little bit or add clarification. So, I mean, this is just like an annual snapshot of what's more of a 5-year process. That's also looking at every month. And right now, like when Harry was mentioning the negative cash flow balance, we're switching from basically getting our revenue in September to December, January when people are paying their property tax. And we're only getting revenue once a year, and then this is based on the fiscal year, which is summer. So there's months we're getting a lot of money, and it looks really good, but then there's months before we collect any more money that we still obviously have to pay the bills. And with our 5-year projection, it's pretty heavily front-loaded because of the studies that we're required to do, like now or by the time we update our groundwater sustainability plan. So in 5 years, unless there's another large project or studies or anything that we have to do, then our cash needs should substantially go down. So like now we're fixing the structure, but as needed, we can adjust the rate of that within that structure, if that makes sense.
Director Crane, I'm sorry we overlooked you. You should have been first.
Another component is we're currently funded by 4 members of the agency, and that is going to stop. So before that stops, we need some sort of cushion built into the system.
Okay. Any other comments from board members or questions? Oh, sure.
There's a process for people to request exemptions from the rate and fee. Is that already factored in? I mean, you mentioned the 10 petitions. Does that factor in exemptions? So like you're anticipating 600,000 in revenue, and is that if everybody pays the rate and fees, or is there a certain percentage that you're taking off of that?
Yeah, we assumed a certain percentage of non-payment or delinquency, and if Indigo, you'll scroll up to the revenue side. Bad debt, delinquencies, and appeals has been estimated at around $16,000.
So that's anticipated. That's not something that's already known. That's where you're factoring.
It's a good point, John, because it's another potential headwind.
Right.
If we get more delinquencies or bad debt in that regard, we'll be coming back to you to look at ways of solving that. Yep, good point.
Okay, board members, any more questions, comments before we go to public comment? Is there anyone in the room who wishes to comment on this item? Please come to the podium, state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Jasmine. I am the new executive director of the Mendocino County Farm Bureau. We just had I had a question and a comment for you guys. So for this budget, we noticed that it reflects a prediction of $180,000 net cash flow, and then the end reserve with $191,000, with the added on $600,000 fee assessment. With the understanding that there are months where the GSA operates off of the cash deficit and the rollover and reserve are intended to allow for cash flow throughout the year. We think that there is a full year of looking at fee collection and cash flow. There should be an adjustment that will likely lead to a decrease in fees, hopefully. And the Farm Bureau would just like to remind the board of our earlier comments on the timing of this fee, as water users face cost increases across the board and financial pressures. The next one is we'd like to inquire on how the number for the bad debt delinquencies and appeals was calculated and developed. While we do have an understanding that there might be a percentage of property owners that don't pay the annual fees, we just want to know if the assumption is based on a percentage or a formula that the county uses, and how you would kind of ensure the accuracy.
I think a victory in this budget would be just exactly what you're posing. If we could reduce fees going forward, certainly that's been the sentiment expressed to me by the board, is to manage this as efficiently as possible. And we're looking at every aspect of how we do business to do it more efficiently. In terms of the estimate for the bad debt and delinquencies, Indigo, can you help me out there? Was that based on metrics that we used in the Sonoma GSAs?
Yeah, certainly, and Catherine might be better able to, I was just trying to pull up the exact percentage. It is based off of a percentage. I believe it's around 3%. That should be about right, which is based off of our experience both in the Sonoma County GSAs on bad debt and appeals, as well as within Catherine, our fee consultant's experience with the GSAs that she has worked with. It's a pretty standard percentage of non-payment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome aboard.
Any other questions or comments from people in the audience in the room? There appears to be nobody online. So with that, I would entertain a motion to move the recommended action.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Ready for a roll call vote?
Director Crane.
Aye.
Director Gasca.
Aye.
Director Bailey.
Aye.
And Chair McCordy.
Yes.
And
Motion.
just to confirm, that motion was Director Crane and the second was Director Gasca.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Next we'll go on to the Groundwater Sustainability Fee Study Report and resolutions.
All right. Well, it's been a lot of work getting to this point. We have gone through a couple of iterations of the fee and study report that Catherine and her team presented. The first recommended action that we bring to the board today for consideration is to adopt a fee pursuant to the Water Code Section 10730 and empower the GSA to develop or institute the groundwater sustainability fee. I'll introduce that idea with just, and then pivot. Catherine, do you have any comments on that?
Catherine has a presentation, Harry.
Okay,
So Catherine's going to present on the
Thank
fee
you.
study. The first action ahead of your board would be to approve and adopt the fee study that Catherine has been developing. So I think over to you, Catherine.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Here we go. All right. You should all be able to see my presentation now. Can you all see it? I'll move it over here. Oh, sorry. No, I need to keep it there. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, although you might want to put it into the presentation mode. We can see the full.
Is that better?
Waiting 1 second for it to transmit. We're still seeing the PowerPoint screen.
It's gone over to my other screen. So now I have to share my other screen because it moved over. So, how's that?
Now we're seeing your presenter view, but that'll work if that's the best.
Oh, Okay, well, sorry about that. All right. Well, thank you all. As Harry said, it has taken us some time to get to this point. So I'm going to keep this presentation fairly short. This is going to cover the background on why this fee study was conducted. I'm going to talk a little bit about the cost basis for the fee in fiscal year 2025.
Catherine, real quick, there's a pop-up in the middle of your presentation slide. I don't know if you can defeat that or.
Oh, you're seeing a different. Okay, I don't know
That's
why you're
better.
seeing.
That's better.
Okay. Okay, I don't know why you're seeing that screen, but we'll roll with it. Okay. Okay. All right, so today the GSA has been funded by the member agencies' contributions and by state grants. That has amounted to a contribution of $68,750 for each member. And in fiscal year 2024, each member also provided an additional $30,000 to pay for the fee study. So this long-term funding stream is needed for the GSA's state-mandated activities, and it is paid for by the beneficiaries of those activities. The steps that we have taken to develop this fee include the following. First, we have collected all pertinent data, that being data that was available to us, that we could put into a web map, run queries on, and just gain the full breadth of knowledge that we could to develop the fee. Second of all, which was an equally important pillar for this fee study, was to incorporate input from stakeholders, decision makers, and the public. And as is documented in the fee study report, we did that through various different outreach materials and meetings, and incorporated all of that input. Third, we identified who the beneficiaries of groundwater sustainability activities are, as provided by the GSA. And from all of that information, developed a proposed fee structure. And between February and May, we presented different iterations of that proposed fee structure to the board. So in total now, this fee study has spanned a year. We started out in July of 2023, and we are now in June 2024. The cost basis of fiscal year 2025, as presented in the last item to you, is $600,000. So that is the basis of the cost for the fee calculations for this fiscal year. In determining who are the GSA's activity beneficiaries, first, all properties within the GSA's boundaries that benefit from sustainable groundwater management. Because of that, all properties will pay a Part 1 base fee to fund the GSA's core operating costs. In addition, groups of beneficiaries that were identified that use groundwater will pay a Part 2 group fee to fund all other GSA regulatory activity costs. The Part 2 fee groups include, there were 4 fee groups that were identified, but fee group 4 is a group that is identified as not using groundwater. They will not be paying a Part 2 fee. The fee group 1 includes the public water systems, so the City of Ukiah, Regina Water Company, the Ukiah Tribe of Indians water system, Flight Ridge, City of 10,000 Buddhas, Lakeview Mutual, River Estates Mutual, and then the Upper Russian River Agency water agencies, so Redwood Valley, Millview, Willow, and Calipella County water districts. Fee group 2 is identified as cropland. So this is all parcels that are growing crops as identified by DWR. DWR contracts out with a third party to perform imagery and ground truthing throughout the state to identify what crops are being grown, the acreage, if the crop is, or any crop is being grown for part of the year or all of the year. So all of those parcels and parcels that have at least one medium, large, or nursery cannabis license. Fee group 3 includes homes and businesses that are not in fee groups 1 or 2. So that means that there is an improved property. An improved property means that it has an improvements value assigned by the assessor. And then they're not served by a public water system. Additionally, the improved property must not already be identified as cropland. So included in this category, we would expect to see some residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional use of properties. And then, as I mentioned, fee group 4, this is all other property. This is properties with any portion of the parcel within the GSA boundary, but they are not identified as being groundwater users. So the base fee, the part 1 fee, is a fee per acre that is applied to the area of the parcel that is within the GSA boundaries. This fee is applied to all properties within the GSA, and it is placed on the property tax bill. There's a little asterisk there. If there's any properties belonging to owners who do not pay property taxes, they will be billed by the GSA annually. And then for the part 2 fee, fee group 1, the public water systems will pay per 1,000 gallons extracted. That is billed annually directly to the water systems. Fee group 2, this is a fee per cropped acre, or if it's a cannabis cropland parcel, it's capped at 1 acre, and that's placed on the property tax bill. Fee group 3 also pay a fee per acre for the entire parcel. However, residential is capped at 0.5 acres per parcel. And so it's all placed on the property tax bill, the exception of fee group 1 to the public water systems, unless that property owner does not pay a property tax bill, and then the GSA won't bill them directly. For fiscal year 2025, these regulatory fees were calculated out as $4.07 per acre for the part 1 fee. So that's for every acre that's within the GSA boundary. For the part 2 fee is $0.1352 per 1,000 gallons extracted. For cropland, the fee is calculated at $32.75 per cropped acre. And for group 3, I think I might have said that wrong. For group 3, it's $34.67, and that's for the entire parcel acreage. Fee exempt properties, the only properties that will not be charged the fee are federal properties. And there are some tribal lands that are held in trust by the federal government too. These properties are not charged the fee. That's pursuant to state and federal law. So the GSA cannot charge the fee to those parcels. But apart from those parcels, no other properties are exempt from the fee. And then just to go over that, there's a couple of categories that are capped in acreage when they are charged the fee. In group 2, those cannabis license holders that are not growing a crop other than cannabis on the parcel, they are going to be capped at 1 acre. And for group 3, the residential properties capped at half an acre each. This graph shows how much revenue is projected to be collected by each of the fee groups. So fee group 1, these are all properties that are served within the public water system's boundaries. The property owners will pay the Part 1 fee. Public water systems will pay the Part 2 fee for Group 1. Group 2, all of their fees will be placed on a property tax bill. For Group 3, they pay Part 1 and Part 2 as well on the property tax bill. And Group 4, they are only paying the Part 1 fee. This table shows the impact for a single-family home. How much would a single-family home be paying in fiscal year 2025? It will range. So if the home is served water by a public water system, the fee should be between $10 and $25 for the year, but it depends on the lot size and ultimately how the public water system charges the customers to reimburse the fee that they pay to the GSA. So that's why it's shown as a range. For Group 3, also single-family home fees should be in the same range, $10 to $25 for the year. But for the Group 3, it depends on the lot size, bearing in mind that their Part 2 fee is capped at half an acre. For the cropland, to show the impact of the fees, I've shown 3 farms here. They are all sized 10 acres, but the cropped acreage is different for each of them. So here we have a very small farm. It's about 1.5 acres of the 10 acres is actually cropped. Farm 2, 6 acres is cropped. Farm 3, most of the acreage is cropped. You see here the base fee is the same for each of these farms, but the Group 2 fee will change because it depends on the amount of actual cropped acreage. So total fees include both the base fee and the Group 2 fee. So you can see here that the amount of fee increases as the area of the parcel is cropped. These two charts provide comparisons of fees with the Sonoma County GSAs, as those are the closest, seem the most relevant to use as a comparison. When the Sonoma County GSAs set their fees, they calculated unsubsidized fees, and ultimately they ended up subsidizing the Petaluma and the Sonoma fees. So they are charging the Santa Rosa Plain fees and the county is subsidizing for the rest. But in these graphs, I'm showing the unsubsidized fee levels because those are the true costs for the GSAs. The big difference here is that for the Ukiah Valley Basin, the fees are the same regardless of the crop type. So whether you're growing orchard or you're growing grapes, the fees are the same. They look different between these charts because the scales are different on the axis. Here you can see on the grapes chart, the range here is from 0 to 1,400, whereas on the orchard chart, it goes from 0 to 4,000. So that's why they look a little different. But the key takeaway here is that Ukiah Valley's fees, they are lower than the unsubsidized fees would be for Petaluma and Sonoma. They are a little greater than the Santa Rosa Plain fees for grapes and lower for orchard. For the annual fee update process, the fee resolution that's being provided to you today includes annual adjustments to the fee. It needs to be based on the 5-year rolling average extraction estimates for fee groups 1 and 2, and for the GSA's adopted budget for the next fiscal year. But it does provide that in the event that the 5-year rolling average extraction estimates are not calculated, or for some reason the budget is adopted later than May, or for some reason not everything goes according to plan, that there is a provision for a fee increase within the resolution. Following fee adoption, if it is to be adopted today, then the fee amount has to be calculated for every parcel in the GSA with the most current assessor information. The tax roll needs to be prepared for the auditor controller by, their requirement is submission by August 10th at the latest. And then the GSA will prepare the handbills. Handbill is just another word for a direct bill for the public water systems and for the property owners that do not receive a property tax bill. Every year, a fee resolution must be adopted by the board, and this is a requirement of the county to place the fees on the tax roll, regardless of whether the fee amounts change or not. And that actually concludes my presentation. It was meant to be a high-level recap of all of the work that we've done over the last 12 months. So I'm here to take any questions.
Questions for the board? I have one. So how often can we adjust fees?
You can adjust the fees as often as you would want to, because it's a Prop 26 fee. You would have to go through the same noticing process as you have done for this meeting, ensuring that all the information is available to the public at least 20 days beforehand, ensuring that a notice is placed in the newspaper twice consecutively for 14 days before this meeting. However, in practicality, because you're placing the fees on the property tax bill, it really means that you have an opportunity once every year.
And I asked that question because again, as we develop more studies on our well inventory and such, it might be that we change some of the assessments on people who use more water than others around. So I just want to let everybody know that this isn't fixed in stone, and it can be adjusted if we need to come up with fairer rates based on water usage. Questions or comments? Director Crane.
The argument still exists. This is a regulatory burden more than anything. Mandated regulatory burden. And it has nothing to do with how much water anybody actually uses, where it came from. We're saddled with this obligation no matter what. And going through the math, presuming, for instance, the acreage charge, if I've done this correctly, take a typical residential lot that may be 5,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet, and apply that to a tax bill, pennies, not even dollars. And I think that the residential uses, I think there's room for more of that regulatory cost to be there. I'm not a fan of seeing so much of this fall on ag. And it would be de minimis for there to be a way to look at the small users in a different frame, because they really are in a different framework. So I think we're confronted with adopting what has been prepared, but this is food for thought going forward.
You know, I like your observations, and I think that,
Mr. Gaskin has
so, go ahead, Gaska.
Yeah, I mean, there is a basis in the methodology, and it goes back to our own groundwater sustainability plan. You know, we stated that that is our best estimate for now, that agriculture is using roughly 2/3 of the groundwater. So then that's part of what we have to achieve, is making this as equitable as possible. So, I mean, we can do that. And I do agree. I've run through the numbers, and it shows that if we assume everything, and especially if we add more data like what is being reported by agriculture of using groundwater for farming and surface water, then we know that actually it's probably over exaggerated. It's overestimated. But then all we would end up doing is shifting the cost to somebody else. We still have to, you know.
we're saddled with the cost as a greater community.
Yeah.
Period.
So, all I can say is it could be worse. There's other places that really have serious issues with groundwater sustainability management. We're fortunate to be in a place where our groundwater it seems to be sustainable. There isn't a big fluctuation in elevations of groundwater from year to year, even during the drought. So we seem to be pretty good at recharging, which is really helpful for us. And consequently, the state has recognized that. I think this board's worked really, really hard to, and our technical advisory committee has worked really, really hard to come up with as reasonable a fee as we can possibly put together for a non-mandated service. I'm sorry, for a mandated service. It feels non-mandated because we don't really see a direct effect from it. It's not like some fees you pay for, you get a direct benefit that's clear and obvious, and this isn't. However, given that we have a lot of uncertainty in our climate and water supply in the future, I think that it's smart that we're taking a look at this and beginning to regulate it and manage it, more importantly. So, you know, we built into it some resiliency where we can change fees relatively easily to be fairer if that's what we think we need to do, you know, following public hearings and justifications. So I think we've put together a dynamic plan here. So this is about the best that we can do for now.
Place to start.
It's a place to start, and that's been the attitude of the board. We know it's not perfect, but we have to get the mechanism in place to do the management, do the studies, collect the money, and adjust if necessary. So I think we're meeting that task with this study. I did have a request, which I don't know if the board can consider at this time, but the Ukiah tribe would like to be moved with the rest of the federally recognized tribes. They're in the process of being considered. They're a severely economically disadvantaged community, so any fees that they pay is going to be a hardship for them, as it's communicated with. So I don't know if we can consider that at this time, or if that's something that goes through the appeals process. And I see we have Javier here, so would you like to address that for us? If we could bring Javier. Javier, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Gordy. I just wanted to formally, we working on a letter to submit to the board on behalf of the tribe, requesting an exemption from any rate fees similar to any trust properties. The tribe operates and maintains its own public water system, but doesn't everybody pitches in to pay for that service out there. So they're really at a hardship, even doing the mandatory reporting that is required by the state already, and the fees associated with that too. So this is just something that I think would be unnecessary. It probably doesn't do much for the whole agency, it looks like anyway. So, but They'd like to formally request an exemption, so, yeah, as Supervisor said, we're curious on what that process would be like.
Okay, then.
I like your idea of taking it up during the petition process. I mean, we take no pleasure in assessing severely disadvantaged communities. We're sensitive to that, not only with the tribe, but in general. It's, spooling up new government is, personally, it's not one of the most enjoyable things to do, but it's necessary under SGMA. So it's the board's pleasure, but my suggestion would be to take it up during the petition process, and we certainly will be sensitive to that.
Board members?
I would support exempting them.
I support it in principle, but since this is my first meeting, I feel like I don't have the full background.
So we have two choices. We could exempt them probably here, or we could also go through the petition process. Supervisor Craig?
Before we make any direct action, I would recommend, I believe this is something we would want to clear with council, and so before receiving board direction in this meeting, I'd recommend we receive the letter from the Ukiah tribe, discuss with our council, and if we need to, we could bring it before your board at a future meeting.
Well, that was kind of the direction I was going to. I think
concur, and that's where I was going to go.
Yeah, it sounds like we have a process in place. It's kind of not really on point for our agenda. Clearly, there's sympathy here. So I think what we want to do next is get a request directly from Ukiah Rancheria, and we'll take it into consideration at that time. Is that workable for you, Javier?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Sorry for the interruption, but I just wanted to be sure we brought it up since we're just discussing the rate and fee groups. Okay, Catherine, you done with your presentation pretty much?
I am. Thank you.
Okay. Board members, so at this point, we will take public comment if there's no further comment on the rate and fee structure. We've worked on this long and hard. I kind of feel like we're exhausted.
I see the finish line.
Rate and fee fatigue.
Yeah, so we've been a lot of places with it. We've worked really, really hard. I really thank Catherine, especially because she's had to deal with people who can't make up their minds on the surface. But she's been a trooper and stuck with us, and I kind of feel like we have something that's workable. Is there any feedback from people in the room on this rate and fee structure? Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Randall, again from the Mendocino County Farm Bureau. I wanted to acknowledge and thank the board for bringing up agriculture during your discussion of this. And the Farm Bureau did appreciate the alternative method for the calculation of fees for the Group 2 parcels, so that the crop land that were based on per planted acre charge, rather than the fee per total acre. And we'd like to see additional discussion for the GSA regarding the approach to the annual fee update process. Within the packet, it said that there was an automatic 4% increase on an annual basis. We think the needs to be justified based on the needs of the GSA, and there needs to be a mention of reducing fees if the reserves are adequate. And within the information that we got on the cropland and how it's defined in the fee study, we've been receiving a lot of questions related to how the definition of cropland considers dry farmed crops, such as non-irrigated oat hay, and does the DWR data set used to define cropland include only irrigated crops or any crops regardless of their water use?
Okay, so is there anyone who can answer that question? I know, Adam, you researched it a little bit with DWR, or maybe Harry, you have experience.
Catherine's leaning in.
Catherine, go ahead.
Yeah, I can answer that. So I asked the people who actually do this work, that the firm is called Land IQ. They are the third party that conduct this work for DWR. They cannot distinguish between dry farmed and irrigated farmed properties. They show properties that have been that have been used to grow crops for at least some portion of the year, if not the full year. But they're working on it, they said, but there's no way to know exactly what kind of irrigation method is being used for that cropped area.
Thank you.
And to the point of the automatic increase, and I don't think we're going to do that, certainly in a vacuum. And my charge has been to try to reduce these fees. And so a West Yost success story would be to be able to lower these into the next fiscal year. TBD, to be determined. We have an unknown year ahead of us, and so we're certainly going to do everything in our effort to keep the fees as low as possible.
So my understanding is that that's put in there as kind of a inflation clause so that we don't get into a situation of where fees don't change for years and years, because the county's gone through that where we had fees that haven't changed since 1991, and the direction went out, you got to have fee recovery, and the change from 1991 to today was kind of eye-popping for a lot of people. So I really support that you update your fees on a regular basis so that no one's surprised or overwhelmed when they suddenly jump 1,000%.
Yeah.
And the required 5-year review.
Yes. Any other questions or comments from members? There's no one online with their hand up, so I guess we would entertain a motion to
move 1 through 4 of the recommended action.
I'll second that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. I guess we're ready for a roll call vote.
Sounds good. And just for the record, there is 4 actions that Director Crane just made a motion for. The first is to adopt and approve the Hansford Economics Consulting Fee Study Report. The second would be to adopt a resolution regulating de minimis users. The third would be to adopt the resolution establishing the fee. And then the fourth would be to authorize the general manager to negotiate a contract with the auditor, controller, tax collector for the County of Mendocino to administer the fee collection on property tax bills.
That's correct. We're ready for a vote.
Director Crane.
Aye.
Director Gasca.
Aye.
Director Bailey.
Aye.
And Chair McGordy.
Yes. Carries. Right, now we're on to item E, which is an amendment to West Yost Associates GSA administration contract.
Okay, this is where I have my handout. We're ahead of schedule. That's good. Indigo, would you mind bringing up at least let's see what portion of the. Well, she's doing that. So I've worked with the ad hoc committee to review West Yost's costs for the coming year. We did a very detailed and rigorous, page 24. There we go. That's good. So we went through a very rigorous exercise of going through each of these tasks and trying to anticipate to the best of our ability level of effort. What you're not seeing here is some of the assumptions. For example, board and committee meetings. We've assumed 4 meetings with the board and 4 committee meetings with what I'm calling is the ad hoc committee meeting, which is composed of Chairman McCordy, Director Gasca, Beth, and Sean. And so I presented to the board what I thought it was going to take, or to this committee, what I thought it would take to do the work for the next fiscal year. And it is more than what you're seeing here on the screen. Their direction to me was to conform our budget, the West Yost budget, into a budget that has been already approved. So the budget you just approved ties to the estimated total budget that I'm asking for in this letter proposal. I I do want to qualify this. I think it's an incredibly lean budget for us, and it's going to be a real challenge to stay within that. It's going to be a partnership as we move forward. And my request would be, to the extent that we're living within the assumptions of the letter proposal in terms of the amount of meetings, the amount of petitions, all the embedded assumptions in each of these tasks, to the extent that we can live within those, I'm entirely confident that we can achieve this budget. But to the extent that we have additional meetings that are required, the petition that the amount of petitions that we've estimated are greater, or anything unforeseen comes up, executive orders, we're being drawn into, for example, by governor's executive order to weigh in on well permits. And we have our kind of maiden voyage in that process coming up on a well that's being a replacement well off of Gobi for a vineyard. And so we've estimated, I think, 4 of those in the coming year. So that's just kind of an overall viewpoint of how we're looking at this budget. Again, it's a partnership. You're committing to us as your consultant, and we're looking to you to help us manage it within the limitations of the assumptions we've outlined. So the other thing that we'll be doing with this is getting aligned. Our contract was not aligned with the fiscal year, and so we're going to now be aligning all of our contracts for our vendors on a fiscal year. And I believe what we're seeking is an amendment to our contract in the amount of
$94.
Thank you. To $448,494, and that's the contract since our inception, since we've kind of signed on as your management company. So with that, I'd open it up to the board for questions and comments.
Board members, questions, comments? Dr. Crane.
Before the meeting, I requested of our esteemed leader understanding of how the amount projected for the 3-month extension, how that's constructed. My understanding that's something that can be provided to us before we actually take the action to approve this. Is that correct?
I'm not prepared to do it today, but I can certainly follow up with an email or a report to the board.
Wonder what other members of the body think in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would like more time to look at this. Yeah, just get it fleshed out more in front of the full board.
Okay.
Director Bailey, any thoughts?
I agree. I would like to continue this to the next meeting. I feel like I have one specific question. On the letter from June 11th, it says you're requesting a increase in the total contract budget by $142,300. That's page 26 in the packet.
Yeah, to clarify that, that 142 is the full West Yost budget for fiscal year 24-25. There is an estimated, it's around 40,000, 44,000, something like that, remaining in our contracted amount. And so the 98,000 number that General Manager Starkey listed is the difference. So we would be seeking to add 98,000 to the existing contract.
Okay. And then in regards to your comments before about this being a very lean budget, I mean, I see down here on the project budget on page 30 of the packet, presented without contingency and is considered low from a work forecast standpoint, that you estimate a budget augmentation will likely be needed to complete all the forecasted work in the current fiscal year. So I'm worried that we've got a lean budget already that it seems like you're stating isn't necessarily viable. That's, really likely we're going to have to augment the budget. So to me, I would see, continuing this to the next meeting so we can get a little more detail about that one quarter, how the budget's working for that additional quarter, and then also, what do you really think there's, if there's no contingency and you're expecting a budget or an estimate that a budget augmentation is going to be needed, do you have an estimate of what that's going to be? Not asking right now, but that, in order to approve this, that'd be good information to have.
Yeah, certainly, and I can speak to some of those points. So I think our original estimate was we were about $12,000 apart in terms of what I thought it would take to get us through the end of the year, and the board's the feedback I got was, if you need an amendment, we'll consider it. We have ample reserves to absorb that amount of augmentation. But I think that if I can speak for the board, they wanted to test our ability to live within a tight budget, and I welcome that challenge. So,
Dr. Crane.
A bit of history. The assumptions that were made earlier on, a couple of years earlier on, were that more funds would be available through grants to do some of the things that were identified as at least desirable, if not required. Those funds have not come forward. So we're sort of on the horns of a dilemma. Point that you asked about, is it excessive to try and program in $100,000? Is the offset in case we wind up having our toes stubbed with getting these things done. So it's trying to balance what's possible, seems to be possible, with a bit of reserve.
Okay, so any public comment on this item? Come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Jasmine Randall, Mendocino County Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau would like to request that this item be continued to a future meeting as the contract isn't expiring until March of 2025, which allows for more time and consideration. We believe an additional justification for the increased contract amount that should be provided given the tasks in the proposed amendment number 2 don't explain the increase. The current contract budgets for work through March 2025, and the extension of 3 months through June 2025 doesn't explain the nearly $100,000 increase. And the funding increase is significant and requires a diligent review. And the GSA is encouraged to also consider additional administrative options that are more economical while meeting the needs of the GSA. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments from our executive director?
We're happy to bring it back. Well, we will continue to work, and we will bring back answers to the questions that have been posed and see if we can get alignment on our engagement going forward with the GSA.
I was going to ask if we should continue or if we should simply bring it back, and I'm thinking bring it back is the appropriate action.
Okay, so
I'll make a motion to table this item and bring it back to the next meeting.
We probably don't need to table it if we simply say we want it brought back.
Just
That would be a continuation.
give direction to staff to.
And it may be that we leave it in their hands for what meeting they bring it back once they get it prepared.
Okay. So we're going to give
That sounds like a
direction.
good motion.
Agreement?
Yep.
So we'll give direction to staff to bring this item back with a better explanation at a future date to be determined.
Very good.
Okay. All right, next on the item is the consent items. Is there any request from board members to pull an item for further discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent items.
Point of clarification, please. I wasn't at these earlier board meetings. Per your procedures, do I abstain from voting to approve those minutes since I was not there, or do Do I vote?
As far as I'm concerned, you vote. You're signed up for this. You've had the material in front of you. If there was something that really concerned you, staff, you can abstain if you don't feel comfortable.
Okay.
Should be able to.
I second.
That motion was from Director Gasca and the
Yes.
second from Crane. Thank you.
Okay, are there any public comments on our consent calendar? I don't see any online either, so with that, I think we can go for a roll call vote.
Director Crane,
Aye.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director Bailey,
Aye.
and Chair McCordy.
Yes. Motion carries. All right, now we're down to item 6, which is staff and GSA partner updates. Update from the general manager.
Okay, so I just wanted to report, last time we met in person, we had quite a bit of comment and suggestion from Director McNerlin about our budget process, and so we had a meeting with Teresa. We met for about an hour to review with her kind of our cost accounting approach, and really taking our agency budget and putting it into a vendor budget. She found it very helpful. She thought her feedback was it was exactly what she was looking for, and it was very positive. In addition to that, we met with the group that she represents to discuss their concerns about passing through the volumetric charge to their customers. I felt like that went pretty well. Obviously, the devil's in the details to implement that going forward. In addition, on your behalf, I participate in what's called the Small GSA Coalition. It's a group that is been organized by Ann Dubé, formerly of Sonoma Water. She's now a consultant. And the mission of the group is really just to advocate for small GSAs like ours, and kind of to the points that Director Crane made about one size fits all and having to absorb the costs associated with spooling up a GSA and looking for help from the state of California. One of the activities that they are actively involved in is advocating with the Assembly and the Senate on a climate bond to ensure that we can get funding for SGMA. One of the things that most GSAs have benefited from up to this point is significant infusion of grant money from the state of California. Well, that has dried up, but hopefully the climate bond will result in some money that we can get access to. The group is very focused on that. They're also a good resource for me in terms of exploring ideas like other aspects of staffing the organization to achieve some efficiencies. So there's other models out there like ours that we meet and confer just to try to do this better than we have been. And the last thing that I want to touch upon, while I'm talking about this, I'll be asking Indigo to discuss some updates that she is privy to by attending the GRA conference. But I did want to make the board aware that there was an executive order passed that requires this GSA to weigh in on well permitting activities. And I think that the way our involvement is going to materialize is with qualified approvals. In other words, we don't see a problem with this replacement well so long as it's completed in the same zones, it has the same installed equipment, basically no harm, no foul. However, as our model is improved with data, as we learn more about the basin, there may be limitations on pumping. That's probably the best we can do as a GSA, and that is probably going to be some form of our approval statement as the GSA. Many GSAs are adopting a similar kind of qualified language, but I just want to alert the board to that dynamic and that role that we're stepping into with the County Environmental Health Department. Yep.
Harry, I've seen a white paper from the Environmental Health Department. Have they shared that with you yet?
No, we've not seen that. I think it's still in draft form. We did meet with them and review all the paperwork, all the documentation that we have prepared on it that still is in draft. And at present, we're only sitting on one permit that, again, it's for the Gobi well, which is a replacement well. So, but we'll be leaving this meeting. That'll be next on our list to get with them, and we want to keep this process moving. We don't want to be an impediment to wells getting drilled.
I appreciate that because, people need water now, not next year.
Right.
And typically we want, if a well's gone down, let's suppose that the basin collapsed, they're going to need their permit quickly,
right?
Not a year from now.
And Indigo, did you have a report on GRA?
Sure, yeah, I just want a brief report. Around 2 weeks ago, I participated in the Groundwater Resources Association, which is it was a co-event put on by the Groundwater Resources Association of California and Aqua in Sacramento. They do an annual, what's called the Sigma Summit, in which GSAs, consultants, and representatives from the state all meet in Sacramento to discuss issues ahead of GSAs. And so it was a really good day of both networking, communicating with our fellow GSAs, getting a better understanding. I spent quite a bit of time talking with other GSAs about their approaches to handling executive order referrals, as well as broadly how they're handling well permitting and concerns about that. This seems to be impacting a lot of the smaller GSAs, even more so than the larger ones within the Central Valley to a certain extent. And then also talking about some of the proposed legislation that had been on the Assembly floor. One bill, AB, I believe 2079, has ended, but it was would make permanent some of the impacts of the drought executive order, institutionalizing GSA review of wells above 8 inches in diameter. That is not moving forward in the legislature this year, but DWR has been highly supportive of that bill, and so it's likely that we would see a similar bill in the future. This is around the third time it's come before the Assembly. So it was a lot of the presentations were focused on some of the larger issues GSAs are facing. We talked about state board and probationary basins quite a lot, some of the impacts that are hitting some of the Central Valley basins and what we would like to avoid locally. So all of that was really good to hear. It made us feel very good about the position that Ukiah is in comparatively to much of the GSAs across the state, but was also a really good learning opportunity to learn from our fellow GSAs.
Very good.
Yeah, that's the end of my report.
Okay. Directors, anybody have anything they'd like to share? Any reports? Okay, I'll just share with you. So on June 7th, we kind of had a command performance from Congressman Huffman, and it was to more or less celebrate the money that he's procured for the next design phase of the new Eel River Russian diversion structure. It was held first at Lake Mendocino because it was a great backdrop compared to when the governor was here. We had 11,000 extra acre feet in the reservoir because of our Bureau program, which was pioneered in Mendocino County and is now being adapted around the United States. So it's helped me. It's forecast irrigation.
Forecast informed reservoir operation.
Okay, there we go. And it was the brainchild of a member of this Sonoma Water, and it seems to be working extremely well. And then it was quite a command performance. There were supervisors from both of our counties, as well as a commissioner from the Bureau of Reclamation was here, along with her staff. And there was about 40 people, and first we heard Congressman Huffman take a victory lap for getting us funding. And then we went out to actually see the Van Arsdale Dam, which is going to be taken down, and replaced with a new diversion facility so that the grade can be returned to pretty much natural form. Right now, there's a 50-foot dam place that'll be gone. There'll be a slight grade change of a couple feet, but nothing like it is today. And the facility will actually have to pump water because the intake of the tunnel, which we presently exist, that we hope to continue using, is going to be slightly above the point of diversion. So the good news with the $2 million from the Bureau of Reclamation, it indicates that the federal government is interested in participating in this program and in this project. So we're hoping that we may get continued funding actually through construction. So that was pretty positive for us to hear that there's possibly a way forward for us to construct and afford the new diversion. So that was the event that I wanted to share with you. If you haven't heard, it was uplifting after all the crazy things that have happened with us. Also, PG&E was quite well represented there as well. So from the Mendocino Inland Water Power Commission, we've learned that PG&E has extended the time they want for submitting their decommissioning plan an additional 6 months to more or less accommodate the possible activities that the new Eel River Project Authority will need to construct the diversion. So if they have to put up cofferdams and dewater the river, it seems like it would make sense to do it all at once rather than 2 separate times. So even though PG&E said that they didn't want us to be part of their decommission plan, they're trying to accommodate us somewhat if things go forward. So that's also kind of news on so this, in the end, this affects us. We still have quite a ways to go to figure out storage. We did have a meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers, which is always interesting, but we are moving forward with the study process, and this probably is a time for us locally to think about trying to put some political pressure on the Army Corps to move along with this, because they are pretty good at wasting time and going nowheres if you let them. So we want to be sure that we have a full court press from Mendocino County and Sonoma County to try to get as much focus on the Army Corps to move through with this project. And we're not calling it raising Coyote Dam, we're calling modernizing Coyote Dam, because in addition to more water storage, we need to improve water quality. As Sean White has successfully challenged the Army Corps to improve water quality and won the first round in court. Way to go, Sean. And this could be part of the solution. So that's why this is a good time for us politically to put some heat on the Army Corps to improve what they're doing. That's my report. Thank you very much. Okay, no further items, and we're going to go ahead and
Maybe it's worth checking with our online participants to see if any of our partners that are online have any local updates they would like to report out.
I don't see anyone with a hand raised. Going once, going twice.
Okay.
All right. Harry, any last thoughts before we close?
So we have a calendar that we're working on, and I think it forecasts in September board meeting is our next board meeting, or
I believe so. It was just approved as part of the consent calendar.
yeah, but we will probably initiate a meeting sooner than that.
Okay.
And we'll work with the board to calendar that.
All right, sounds
Yep.
good.
Yep.
No further business. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Sure.
Got a schedule.